Are you now what we call go toning down a little bit on 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 your kind of work? You're overworking. Are you now putting a break on that?
Yeah, so a little bit, but maybe my friends won't agree. But yes, I think I've learned to say no to things that I know I cannot accommodate. I try to make time to like really if I need to be with my family, then I have to say no, or maybe I have to have a little bit of time to rest when I get home from work. So I might have to say no to certain invitations. So um yeah, I'm trying. As I said, I'm still in this process as well. I'm still learning. And another thing that I'm also learning is to somebody told I told someone who asked me to take on a responsibility that I just have so many things on my plate. And you know what that person told me? Get a bigger plate.
Hello, everybody. This is Dina Loomis of the Leaders Edge Talk Show. Today, we have a special guest for you. And I know her from Toastmasters International, and I was impressed with her performance during the last convention. Of course, there's more to know about our special guest today. So, Marge de la Fuente, can you please cue us in as to what else we need to know about you?
Yes, thank you so much, Dina, for having me here. Hello, everyone. And I am Marge de la Fuente. I am an HR officer in the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. And I'm also an area director of Division H, Area 2 of Toastmasters District 75 here in the Philippines. I'm very delighted to be with you to share a little bit about my experience about tonight's topic.
All right. So, around the world, this has bugged people. I know that people would be curious and they would want to learn, how do you overcome burnout and why does it happen? Mars.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Dina. I'm sure all of us at some point or another have experienced any one of these symptoms. So, in your mind, as I recite the symptoms of burnout, just raise your hand where you are. Have you experienced fatigue that lasts for a long period of time? Have you experienced feeling apathetic? Have you experienced feeling a prolonged fatigue? Or maybe some of you are feeling apathetic or dissatisfied with your work. Or maybe some of you have felt some physical symptoms like maybe tension headaches, migraine, or maybe difficulty sleeping or insomnia, changes in your appetite. Or perhaps you've felt more irritable lately, impatient with yourself or the people around you. If you felt any of those symptoms, you might be experiencing burnout. This is actually one of the very relevant topics because the World Health Organization has actually labeled it as a global health concern. And today, do I just go ahead and talk about my experience?
Oh, please. Actually, Mars, that's the reason why I was so interested. Because when you mentioned about this topic, I know by the way, we have not covered this topic after all these years. And I was so happy that you mentioned it because that has never been talked about here. Please go ahead and tell us about your experience.
Right. Okay. So before I go into my personal experience, I also just want to share a little bit of research that I found out about the incidence of burnout in the Philippines. Did you know that a 2022 survey conducted by Deloitte, which is a global consulting firm, they provide consulting services. A study here in the Philippines last year found out that 70% of Filipino Gen Zs and 63% of millennials are experiencing burnout because of the demands of their workload. And among the respondents, 58% of these local respondents mentioned that they know of some of their colleagues who have actually left the workforce because they were just so stressed by the amount of work that they have. So meaning to say that the average incidence of burnout here in the Philippines is actually higher than the incidence around the world. So I think that's something interesting. And as I mentioned, I'm sure people out there in our audience have raised their hand when I mentioned all of those symptoms earlier. And I myself, I don't claim to to be an expert in all of this because I myself am going through it, and I do a lot of these things that I'm about to share with you right now to just get out of that hamster wheel, feeling like there's a lack of meaning. Everything's just routinary. You're not sure about what you're going through. You're not sure about the purpose, the meaning of things. That's how I've experienced burnout. Now, I'm going to give you first the definition of burnout based on the American Psychological Association's definition. And then I'm going to tell you what or how this affects us. And then I'm going to share with you some of the ways that we can overcome burnout. Does that sound good? All right. So, according to the American Psychological Association, burnout is a physical, emotional, or mental exhaustion that you would experience together with decreased motivation, lowered performance, and negative attitudes toward yourself or others. And this usually results when you perform at a high level for prolonged periods of time. So let me just emphasize that prolonged periods of time. They first observed this, I believe, back in the 1950s with some health professionals who had just so much caseloads. And they also see this in athletes even today. So it could be mental or physical. So once we have that prolonged stress, it eventually takes its toll on us. Now, for the symptoms of burnout, as I mentioned, fatigue, right? So let me share a little bit of my experience on that. There were just some days when, I would stay working on something, whether if it's work related or related to some extracurriculars, and I would really just work on it until 9 p.m., 10:30. Before I know it, it's midnight. And sometimes I would end up doing that for several weeks in a row. When people invite me to hang out with them, any of my friends are watching this will just be like, yep, I rarely get to really go out and spend time just having a social life. And that resulted in me just feeling tired. Like I didn't want to get out of bed. It's not just the ordinary tired, it's like mentally, physically exhausted. I didn't want to wake up to go to work. I just wanted to stay in bed. I just wanted to be in my cave away from the rest of the world. That's the kind of fatigue that I'm talking about. And I'm pretty sure the people who are watching this now have experienced that in one way or another. I also ended up experiencing some anxiety and panic attacks. One time, I I was working on a major project, and I don't know, maybe it just consumed my mind so much even before I sleep or the first thing when I wake up. And there was a one night where I just felt really a sense of dread coming over me from head to foot. Head to foot. It was like a dark cloud that was just coming over me from head to foot. And a few seconds later, I was feeling palpitations. I thought that was the end of me. So I told my dad, Dad, I think I need to go to the hospital. And he wasn't moving fast enough. So I was like, Dad, Mom, I love you. You know, if anything happens to me, it was that serious. I really thought that was the end of it. And lo and behold, when they took my vital signs when I got to the emergency room, it was all normal. I don't know how that happened. So they did all the tests, and I had to go through some specialists just to be sure everything was okay. And I did a little bit of research. This is just a self-diagnosis, but basically the symptoms I was experiencing seem to fall under panic attacks. So feeling of dread, feeling like something bad is going to happen to you, feeling like you're going to have a stroke or heart attack. So these are some of the symptoms of burnout that I've experienced. Yeah.
So, Marge, it didn't always happen in the office then. Sometimes it happened in your home.
Yes, that's right.
So
Uh,
it cannot be associated all the time with office work.
Not necessarily. It could also be that there's certain other areas in your life where maybe people demand more from you. So it's not necessarily just work related. And I did get to see in the research that that's one of the things that characterizes burnout. It's usually in a certain area of our lives. And the the other mental health disorder, this depression, would be something generalized in for the other areas of our lives. So that's kind of what makes burnout unique. It could be in just one area of your life, not necessarily work.
Oh, I see. Okay. And Mars, how long has this been going on? I mean, years or months or uh, how, how long have you been experiencing this?
Okay, so the panic attack I told you about earlier happened in 2018. It was October. I remember October 2018. And the other weird thing that happened, I think, because of that, is I seem to have difficulty driving on a freeway or a highway, Skyways, South Luzon Expressway by myself. So it's very specific, and I'm still trying to figure out how that's connected with any burnout that I might be experiencing. But to this day, I'm still relearning how to drive.
Oh my goodness. And so far, how many times have you gone to an emergency room as a result of it?
Twice. Twice. And both times the vital signs were normal. I can't explain it, but yeah. I consider it as a blessing actually. Things could have been worse.
Yes,
But
I
yeah.
imagine it also has something to do with psychological in the sense that now that you have people who love you, support you, and then bring you to the hospital, sort of the relief took over. And so all of a sudden, it went back to normal, something like that.
Yeah.
And that could be a cause for panic. I can imagine that. Now, in your experience, have you had friends, colleagues, um, who narrated the same thing, the same experience with you?
I've had some friends who have shared not exactly the experience that I've had, but something similar, having difficulty sleeping, having gastrointestinal problems, ulcer, or uh, maybe also difficulty in performing tasks that they used to normally do. Some of them have also gone to see a professional just to really help,
Right
just
now, yeah, I can imagine it is not isolated case. I'm sure there are others out there. Going back to that driving situation when you were feeling a dread, or could it be because you were just alone? If you were driving and there were other people with you, would that have made any difference?
I believe so. So the I don't understand. I can't explain this myself, but yes, when I drive alone, there seems to be that extra, fear factor. But usually when I drive, let's say with a friend or maybe my parents, it lessens the nervousness, but it's a little still there, a little bit, but very much diminished.
Hmm.
There was also a time when my dad wasn't feeling well, and I don't know, maybe God just gave me the grace right at that moment to be able to drive from Pampanga to Alabang. And I felt so confident. But uh, after that, I started having those doubts about myself again, which is weird because I've been driving since I was 15. So I used to, be my mom would say I was a hustler on the road, and I just don't know what happened to that confidence.
I wonder, Marge, I wonder if there were studies, research done about this. Um, could it be more? It could this be happening more to young people or the more mature people, or nobody is exempted? I mean, it can happen to anyone.
I do believe it can happen to anyone. Um, Although, and again, I'm not an expert with this, but in some of the studies I've read so far, and this could be just a percentage of all the actual studies that are out there, um, there seems to be some greater incidence in the millennials and the Gen Zs. Um, but perhaps I'm not quite the best person to comment about that in general, but I do believe it can happen to anyone.
Or have you experienced some kind of anxiety, Marge, if you are in a really strange place, you've never been there before, and you are with a lot of strangers, not so much your family? Do you experience such kind of apprehensions or anxiety?
I haven't experienced that so far. Um, so far, my own experience has been, well, in driving on the freeway. And sometimes when there are a lot of things maybe in my schedule for the week, uh, I just keep on thinking about what I have to do, what I have to do. I have to do this well, and it results in having those little anxiety attacks before I go to bed. And sometimes I'm up until, like, I'm in bed at 11:30, and then I'm up until 2, sometimes even 3 a.m.
Oh, all right. So, Marge, when I saw you during the Toastmasters convention, and again recently during the Makati Toastmasters Club 50th anniversary, you were so relaxed, refreshed, and you look so happy. So, have you gotten past it, or did you go through counseling, or what was it that made you overcome at least all this time? What was it really that made you a little calmer and more, shall we say, more confident of yourself now?
Okay, well, I find that doing things that I love to do. One example is hosting events, being in front of people, performing in front of people, because I like to sing and I also find that I do well in hosting. I think those are some of the things that I enjoy that dispel the anxiety or the fear. Of course, there's still a little bit, a little bit of that stage fright, but in general, I just, let it go when I'm on stage. I'm a totally different person on stage. And my friends, my colleagues can attest to that.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. I can attest to that because I saw you perform at the Toastmasters convention and you looked every inch a professional. Are you telling me, yeah, honestly, Marge, are you telling me that you didn't even seek professional help or counseling or something like that? You just did this all by yourself?
no, not at all. I did seek help and I still continue to have that support system. So we are very blessed in our office to have an in-house psychologist, and she's a friend of mine. I've confided in her as well, and we try to sort things out together. I also do have a psychology background. So I I sometimes try to self-diagnose, but that that doesn't always work. So um I also have mentors who guide me, help me with my thought process, and I also have just concerned friends. It's very important to have a support system, people who understand what you're going through, and you do that for them also. You are there for them when they're going through a similar mental health issue.
So, Marge, this means that it pays to express how you feel. When you're feeling something already different, not quite normal, it pays to tell people about it. Would you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very important to have that support system, your family, your friends, and if I would also be able to mention, believing that you're here in this world for a bigger purpose, believing that there's a God who created you for a specific purpose. And when we lose touch with that purpose, as I found in my own journey, when I started thinking that I could do everything on my own, that's when that's when I started feeling like things were going downhill. And I actually did a graph of, specific uh points in my life, and I realized that the times when I felt really down were the times when I lost touch with my purpose.
Oh, all right, all right. That's so important because honestly, I have I have one of our assistants here in the office whose husband went through what we call the worst kind of burnout
Mm,
because he just suddenly collapsed and they had to bring him to the hospital because he could not stand, he could not talk, and it looked like he was so overworked. And
right,
he's going through therapy now because of the extreme uh, reaction on his body. His brain already reacted in such a way that he now his half of his body is paralyzed. He's going through therapy sessions, and the doctor said because he was overworked.
right,
And
right.
he worked
Yeah.
nonstop. Yeah, nonstop work. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I consider myself still blessed because the vital signs are normal. But in an extreme case, and studies have found that burnout can lead to much more serious problems, and perhaps we don't even need studies to tell us that. So we can have heart disease, type 2 diabetes, gastrointestinal problems, respiratory problems, everything can be related to the state of our mental health, which is the main culprit here when it comes to burnout. And if I can also share some of the things that I've found are related to what can be causing burnout in our lives. So one of the things I found was mindset. So mindset, when you have perhaps an upbringing where, maybe you were just so used to doing tasks on your own. You don't like delegating. You just, take everything. Maybe you are someone who dislikes displeasing others, or you don't want to say no to others. So you end up just, whatever people ask you to do, you just say yes until your plate is so full that you just can't handle it anymore. So those are some of the mindsets. Or maybe you're afraid of failure. You're afraid of losing control. So you're a perfectionist. So all of these things, I believe, are part of a mindset that can lead to burnout. So I hope that we'll be aware of that. And also, even hanging out with the wrong crowd, people who complain a lot. I'm so tired. The weight of the world is on my shoulders all the time. Why do I have to be the one to do everything? I'm, having that kind of a savior complex is also an ingredient for burnout in my experience. So yeah.
I suppose also partly, Marge, it could have something to do with personality because you are so passionate when
Yes.
you are given a task or when you are challenged. You
Right.
want to really give it your all, and I have a feeling it also compounds that kind of pressure, so like a pressure cooker already.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
suppose, are you now what we call go toning down a little bit on 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 your kind of work? You're overworking. Are you now putting a break on that?
Yeah. So a little bit, but maybe my friends won't agree. But yes, I think I've learned to say no to things that I know I cannot accommodate. I try to make time to, like, really, um if I need to be with my family, then I have to say no. Or maybe, I have to have a little bit of time to rest when I get home from work. So I might have to say no to certain invitations. So um yeah, I'm trying. As I said, I'm still, in this process as well. I'm still learning. And another thing that I'm also learning is to somebody told I told someone who asked me to take on a responsibility that I just have so many things on my plate. And you know what that person told me? Get a bigger plate.
Oh,
Like, what? But I think I interpreted this to be like she was saying, I have to learn how to increase my capacity. So I could learn how to delegate certain tasks. I could also increase my let's say sometimes we're not familiar with certain technologies that can help us become more efficient. So we do things manually, old fashioned way, and then by the end of 8 hours we're not done, whereas we could have just done it in 30 minutes. So things like that, I think, are how to ensure that we have a bigger plate. And not to mention, of course, yung proper diet, exercise, having enough sleep. So, we're not robots. We are human beings. And that battery indicator on your laptop that turns red when you have about 5 or 10% of battery left, and it says it will go into reserve power if you don't plug it into an outlet. I think a lot of us plug in. Maybe we have a little bit of exercise, maybe 5 hours of sleep, but we don't get fully charged. We don't take vacations. We don't spend time doing things that energize us. So we end up charging just maybe up to 40%, maybe sometimes 80%, but never to 100%. And that is why it's so easy for us to just fall back into that exhaustion. So
You know,
those, yeah.
uh, I really appreciate Marge, that kind of analogy, because it's so easy to picture in your mind. Ah, so this is what I'm doing to myself. I love that. All right. So, of course, how do you activate the natural hormonal pharmacy of the human body? Meaning, how do you somehow reboot yourself, so to speak?
Yes, yes. So the natural way of doing that, as I'm sure this is, all over the research, there are certain foods that we can eat that would help increase our serotonin or happy hormone levels. And I
Oh,
learned it from a doctor. So banana would be one of them, especially the ends of the banana. I don't know why, but the
oh,
ends of banana
remember that.
apparently,
Okay, ends.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sometimes we just throw it away, but
Yeah,
apparently
yeah.
apparently it has a lot of serotonin. That's what the doctor
Oh, okay,
said.
okay.
And also almond. So almonds, the nuts or almond milk would work. So I really don't believe in, you know, medication as much as possible. I mean, this is, of course, for some people it's needed because sometimes there's a imbalance of hormones in our body, and sometimes it calls for, medication. But if you want to have those happy hormones naturally, then having the right foods, I believe blueberries also there, and chocolates, dark chocolate if possible. And then exercise definitely is a natural happy hormone booster, which I have yet to do regularly. But yeah, so and then having enough sleep, really. If you're waking up like, you're still tired, then you didn't get a good quality of sleep. So it's very important to do that. And oh, one of the practical things that I can share also that I've done for myself is I've invested in things that would help me have a better sleep. Like for example, the pillows that support your neck
Yeah,
properly.
indeed,
So
indeed.
they have like a curve like that, or
Right.
just memory foam.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Because sometimes when I wake up, I have my neck is painful, and that really affects me for the rest of the day. So that's one. The pillows, and I even bought this weighted blanket. So it feels like someone's giving you a hug while you're sleeping. So they claim there are some studies also to prove that. And also linens that are breathable so that your body is cool, because when your body is cool, you're able to fall asleep faster and fall asleep better when our temperature is lower. And then also I listen to um uh on Spotify, sometimes the music, soothing music like spa type of music that would help me fall asleep. And I've also bought some lavender essential oils, or something that I can spray on my pillows that smells like lavender. So small things like that I think are worth investing in.
Mm-mm. Oh, I now, listening to you, I realize you are a believer in the natural way of healing
Yeah.
oneself instead of relying on medication.
Hmm.
So that could be one way to really boost the healing process,
Yes.
because it's natural, no
Mm.
need for medicines.
Right.
So I don't know if you have heard of some people taking what we call serotonin uptake inhibitors. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh, I haven't heard of that, but just from the name itself, yeah, it sounds like a happy hormone booster, but I haven't tried that myself. One other
Yeah.
thing that I forgot to mention earlier, which is very um easy to do, is breathing. Breathing properly is
Yes.
very important. I
Yes.
don't know if any of those watching right now have noticed how they breathe when they're, trying to beat a deadline, like, typing away. And I noticed that sometimes I hold my breath. Like while I'm typing, when I'm thinking of what to type, I end up holding my breath, or my breaths are quite shallow. So one of the things that I found also online was uh, uh, controlled or deep breathing. So
Yes, yes.
sometimes I would inhale for several seconds, around 7 seconds, somewhere thereabouts. Hold my breath for about 4 seconds, and then exhale for about 8 seconds. So I'll be happy to share the YouTube link that I found for
All
that.
right. Yes, yes. That's something. Yes. And have you tried meditation, yoga, things of that nature?
I don't practice yoga, but what I do is I meditate on scripture. Really, again, connecting it back to my purpose, because um I do believe that everybody here in this world has something to give to the world. There's a reason why we're here, and connecting with God and trying to find out what it is I'm here for. I believe that um meditating on Bible verses has helped me a lot. And actually, at one point when I was like really, really feeling the effects of burnout, just this April during Holy Week, I went on a retreat, a personal retreat, together with a pastor friend and his wife. And it was in Mount Makiling. Yeah, Mount Makiling. Um, Mount Makiling Recreation Center. So I was given a booklet to guide me in my meditation, and it really surprised me because it says there, you have no agenda, there have to accomplish. And that was so alien to me. Like, what? I don't have any deadlines to meet. I don't have any things to take off my to-do list. It's just really being there in nature, with nature, and before your creator. So that really helped when I got back to 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 where my parents are, because I stay with them on weekends. I felt the difference. I felt lighter. I felt more loving because I was not focused so much on myself. Yeah, and that's another mindset, by the way, that also contributes to burnout. When we focus too much on ourselves, like, how will people see me? Will they think I'm a failure? Will they think that I did well? That causes a lot of unnecessary pressure. So just knowing your purpose, and knowing that God accepts you and loves you as you are, it frees you to just do what you're here for in this world.
Yes, yes, indeed. Marge, you know what? I love that part of your sharing because a lot of people, a lot of people tend to put more importance on the material things. And
Right.
I love the way you focus on the spiritual side and how you were helped with going the spiritual retreat, which
Mm.
is really, really good for everybody. So I love that. And I don't know if you have heard, there are others who go to some kind of extreme healing, like this European woman who actually followed an advice to jump into the a freezing lake water to revive revive herself, because she was feeling so down and out. And so she jumped into the freezing water, and somehow it made her feel alive again. I suppose there are different ways, different strokes for different folks, but you haven't, that's not one of the things that you have even tried, right?
I haven't, but I think there might be some scientific explanation for that, as long as you don't stay in the water too long. I remember
Yeah,
the ice bucket challenge. Maybe it's something related to that. I'm not so sure.
right. Marge, you know what? I really appreciate your sharing this with us because when I met you, well, the two times that I met you during the Toastmasters convention and then the 50th anniversary of Makati Toastmasters Club, I never had any inkling at all that you had this kind of experience. So I appreciate your being what we call honest and sharing enough to mention it to me, because then I said, "Oh my goodness, we never had a speaker share this kind of experience," and that's the reason why I made sure, even though you have to reschedule yourself several times, because of course, again, because of the workload that you have. But I do appreciate it, and now it is time for you to give some what we call last minute or quick summary of tips and guidelines for people who might be going through some version of burnout, and I know they also need help. So Mars, go on and give us all these last minute tips.
Okay, so well, the first thing I would say would be again to look at our mindset. This really, when I had that panic attack episode, I mean, I told you I have a background in psychology, right? But when I experienced that firsthand, it really solidified that there's really a connection, a very strong connection between the mind, the spirit, and the body. So whatever's going on in our minds can affect us physically. So examine your mindset. Why do you do the things you do? Is it because you want to be seen by people as successful? Or is it because we want to serve others? Is it because we want to achieve, as you said earlier, Miss Dina, the material comforts of this world? Or are we looking beyond that and seeing what we can do to make a difference for, whatever circle of influence we have been given or in our bigger community? So mindset is important. And again, we have to equip ourselves physically. So again, proper diet, exercise, and enough sleep. So again, these are also things that I'm trying to implement regularly in my life, and I hope you guys will too. So equip ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually. Again, connect with your purpose, and just really find that, and it really gives a lot of meaning to your life, and you would feel like I'm part of something bigger. So having that sense of the proper sense of significance, I think, would also help. And finally, another way to help would be to equip the people around you. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to delegate, not to do things on your own. And how do you do that? You you can join. So this is where I plug the Toastmasters. If you want to help people get better in their leadership and communication skills, Toastmasters is one great way to do it. You are as a leader yourself, you are equipping the people on your team on how to be able to learn how to delegate, be able to learn how to strategize. So these are all important things so that we don't experience burnout. So equip yourself, equip others, and find your purpose. I think those are the three things that I would want to end with.
Thank you so much, Mars. This has been very fruitful discussion and highly beneficial to our viewers as well for everyday living. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure when you go to our YouTube by SEASTBI Leaders Edge channel, make sure to click like and subscribe and mention in the comments portion the insights that the wonderful insights that you have gained from watching this video, because I am sure there's more to come. And thank you, Marge. And also, of course, I want to remind everybody that next week we will have Monica Maralit, who will talk on empowering your team members. And of course, a reminder to everybody that learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas